were supposed to be they were supposed to be going somewhere else, but they ended up crashing in this foreign land, which is where Orsino is the duke and Olivia is the queen. And within this play, Viola had to get close to the king, and she had to dress up as a man in order to become his squire, which it makes sense because back in those days, like squires were men. Okay, so now this is kind of interesting because to them, that's not what they heard. What they heard was, oh, she's transgender. Let's rewrite the script so she's transgender, and also let's rewrite all the other characters so they're transgender too. And then before we fully rewrote the script, we spent like a whole month doing re-education camp of like gender politics and like talking about how gender is on this spectrum and whatnot, and like how it's only a concept. You can be whatever you want to be. And it's kind of funny because throughout that entire month we were doing the re-education camp of this whole gender identity and gender spectrum idea, there were kids who were transitioning in my class because of it. Like they were so influenced by that they actually, like, some of them actually ended up becoming the opposite gender, or they became gay, or because of it, because they were very influenced by what was happening in the school. Because these kids were like, probably like it's theater kids, so they're very outcasted. They're not like, they don't fit in with most people, so they're trying to like feel included to the idea of this production and like all the things that we were talking about, because they were getting all this positive reinforcement from the director and from their peers by virtue signaling to each other. Therefore, they started changing their fucking identities to fit in with that whole idea. Because kids are very impressionable and very influenced by these ideas. And it was really crazy the entire time, because at this time I had no knowledge of politics. I didn't follow any political channels. I didn't talk to anybody who was political. My parents weren't even political. Like, I mean, they had their beliefs, but like they didn't ever talk to me and my sister about it when I was younger. Like they wanted to keep us out of the whole fucking political shit, because it's like, fucking kids, like, you shouldn't be talking to your kids about fucking politics. And then this just was like thrown into my fucking plate, and the entire time I'm like scratching my head like, how does this make any fucking sense? Like, it's like there's no logic or fact behind any of these proposed ideas. There's no there's nothing. They didn't talk about anything that was like anything that seemed like it would make sense biologically. Like, they had no science behind any of their beliefs other than, this is how I feel. Well, sometimes I feel like I should be fucking rich, but that's not what I am. Like, I can't just identify as something and say that's what I am because I'm fucking confused in life, or because I'm like, because I'm like unhappy with my current being. You have to, like, what you feel is not what you are. What if I like said I felt like a fucking like what if I said like I felt like, let's a good example. This is really hard for me to even like develop any sort of like logic behind, because it's just such an illogical topic.
It's illogical.
Like, I'm trying to like propose like an alternative like way of looking at it, so we can take the whole gender politics out of it and break it down to its actual algorithm of how they fucking think. But I can't even do that really. It's actually kind of very difficult right now. I should have thought about this beforehand, but it's just they created false comparisons with the story, and then they created these delusions in their fucking head, and then it just kept getting reinforced by adults around them, and that was just kind of like the whole idea behind it. And because of this, there was a lot of issues that would follow me into my day-to-day at school and my day-to-day at life, because I was always pushing against it. I was always telling them like, there's no, like, you can't, like, you'd have to explain to, I would get them to like, I was actually like asking them, can you explain to me your thought process of like why you think it's like this? And then they would just look at me like I'm fucking like ignorant, and they'd be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, there's no, I just kind of want to understand where you're coming from with how these people, like, let's say within the story, like, because we weren't just talking about the fucking play the entire time. We had to go through fucking re-education camp And I was like trying to understand like the mindset and like what the logic was, because it made no sense. It made no sense to me because I'm also like a skeptic, so I was like very skeptical of it. Because all of a sudden, like, you know, I learned my entire life that there's two genders, or there's two sexes. There's male and female, and then as a male, like, you know, male has his level of his shape of chromosomes, female has their shape of chromosomes. And all of a sudden, you're telling me that, and these are teachers. These teachers are telling me that gender is whatever the fuck you believe it is. And we can pull up some of the photos that. Let's see if we pull up the photo of the gender unicorn and shit like that. Do we have that photo, Jerome?
I think we do. Well,
it's scrolled up. You can scroll up in our previous conversations.
yeah, I want to do that. As for the kids in particular here, were the kids would the kids have like were they either autistic, somewhere on the spectrum, or maybe had a bad home life or upkeeping?
Upcoming? Yes. Some of them did. A lot of them came from families where their parents were very absent, because some of these kids that I was in the production with were, you know, of lower income. So their parents had to work all the time, and meaning they weren't very present in their kids' lives, which is not the parents' fault. You know, they have to fucking work to like sustain their goddamn families. Like, you can't ever fault a parent for that. But because they were so absent, their kids were getting all this information from places that weren't being pushed from their parents. And I wonder, and I didn't really fully know their parents' perspective on everything, because I never really talked to them. But like, I just knew that like there was a lot of parents who were very unhappy with what happened, and they actually pulled their kids out of school because of it. My parents did it because my parents had no idea. Well, they had an idea. I was telling them, but they thought I was full of shit, because they thought there was no way that they would be teaching this shit in school. They thought I was just being like fucking, I was just lying. I was just trying to get out of going, and I was just trying to like not do all this stuff. But they didn't believe me. They didn't care. All right. Well, anyways, this is like literally like the educational material that they fucking sent us, and it's like essentially the whole idea here is like they're trying to propose that gender is in your head. Like they're trying to take the separation of sex and gender, and they're trying to create two different categories. Yeah, your sex at birth is this, but what you feel is what you are, which is fucking crazy. Like, it's just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean that that's what you are, you know? And especially in children where they're fucking confused, like they hardly understand what's going on with their own bodies, and you're trying to tell them that like, now, like, what, like, there's this whole spectrum. They can be whatever the fuck they want to believe. They can make their character sheet in D&D, and then that's what they are. Like, that's like what they're trying to say. And, you know, I pushed against that, and I became the ignorant white guy in the play when we rewrote it. Which is kind of funny. Like, if you read the script, they changed. So Orsino and Viola were supposed to get together in the Shakespeare version, because, you know, he was falling in love with her because she was very womanlike and very like, you know, she was a woman, you know, and he was falling in love with her, and he was very confused because he wasn't sure what she was, because she was like posing as a squire, and he was very confused the entire time. But they needed in the play, they needed a villain. So, because there was no really villain in the Shakespeare version, like everyone was just like, you know, just kind of like doing all their like social politics. They were doing Game of Thrones and shit. Like that's kind of like what would happen in the original material. But in this one, I'm the ignorant white guy who has no idea what the fuck is happening, and they have to womansplain it to me. They have to like explain to me why I'm so dumb and ignorant. And it's like, that was my fucking role in the play, because the entire time I was pushing against what they were saying. So they found the perfect role for me, the ignorant white guy. And that's what I am. I'm an ignorant white guy, and I'd rather be an ignorant white guy than a fucking crazy lunatic who believes that they're a fucking attack helicopter.
Yeah, and for going back to essentially where you talk about where they had either a bad upcoming or homecoming or on the spectrum or whatever,
Yeah.
There has been many articles and even statistics showing that a lot of this might be, I don't know if it was majority of girls that was affected by this. I'm pretty sure guys were, but majority of girls usually
It was mostly women actually who were affected by the production. Actually, a lot of the men were like virtue signaling, or just because they just didn't want to be like thought of as ignorant. The guys who were in the play with us, and then there was guys who were just like really flamboyant and very gay.
Yes. And
Then they were like, trying to be like inclusive because they're already gay, because they already knew they were gay, and that's whatever. But
yeah, the statistics and the articles, even many of them, where it shows that a lot of the kids that have, this was also by a woman that that came up and it did was within this whole transgender thing, where she was specifically working with these kids that wanted to transition or want to do the surgery or what have you, whatever the case may be. And what she ended up finding out was either the kids were in a very bad home upcoming, bad parents or etc., or they were on the spectrum, either autistic or retarded or whatever it may be. And the majority of them happened to just be women that were affected this. And this is what I've been talking about with the whole social media thing too, and how bad it's actually affecting women. And what a lot of women actually don't seem to either understand about themselves, or either ignorant or playing fools to themselves, where
their behavior's being reinforced by like people in their lives that they look to for advice, or like that they quote unquote respect, like especially like these kids who, you know, they had very absent parents at home. Their parents were not accessible to them, or their parents were also fucking brainwashed lunatics.
Yeah.
But like they were being very influenced by the teachers at school. So the teachers were like people they looked up to because they were trying to be included, because, you know, maybe they didn't get enough love at home or something like that. So they were listening to their teachers, because like the teachers are all like, "Oh, you want to transition? Wow, good for you. We support you. You are a hero." You like, they're just it's a form of manipulation where like these fucking teachers don't even know they're actually like manipulating them, because they're also like drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and this is, and a lot of these, my point to where we're going was the women, if you look at the statistics for Instagram, a lot of them are having either body dysmorphia or psychological damage at period, mostly with the younger girls. And this is usually due to women usually feed off of attention. This is just obvious. This is not.
Well, they see how all these girls on TikTok are getting attention for shaking their ass on camera. They're like, well, why doesn't anyone else like me like that? They feel like insecure. And who wouldn't? I would feel insecure too.
Yeah.
If I didn't get that level of attention, and like, oh, am I not pretty enough? Like, do I have to change myself to be like that?
Yes.
Do I have to change my body? Like, it's like, this can actually go back further than like social media too. Because I don't know if you notice, I don't know if you notice this, but like, I'm sure like there's older individuals who notice this, where when porn started taking sweep in the nation, people like used to never like shave their private parts. Really, they'd trim them and like do maintenance, but they wouldn't like just shave themselves down. But then porn started doing it, so then they started doing it because they thought that's what they had to do in order to be attractive.
Yeah, and
so they're being very influenced by the shit that happens online, because they don't have anyone to tell them the actual, like, how to, like, you know, be like, what is it, like, we're not so self-conscious, I guess, and like they don't understand that that's not what you're supposed to be.